Welcome to this edition of the Family Business Education Initiative responding to COVID-19, brought to you by the U.S. Small Business Administration and the Mississippi State University College of Business. Today we're going to tackle navigating the resources of the SBA and the Mississippi Small Business Development Center. No one better to do that with than Chip Templeton, who's the director of the center here at Mississippi State. Good to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Man, folks are confused. They're looking for help, and this is going to be a great segment because there really is some resources with the Small Business Administration. Right?
That's right. This whole program today is designed to, we're trying to wear your shoes as the business owner. What would we do, if this were you? Where would you need to go?
So we got your contact info on the screen. We'll leave that up there for a bit. But tell folks where you're located.
I'm in the College of Business. However, my office is not in McCool Hall, where that is. I'm located over in the Research Park, north of campus, in the incubator building. It's at 60 Technology Boulevard. And that's where we're located. It's a great place to be, great place for business owners to come by as COVID dissipates. So that's where we are here in Starkville.
Well, and it's easy to find you online too. So you really would just suggest folks hit you up with an email. And I've done this with you several times. I've sent you clients, and as soon as you reach out to them or they reach out to you, they hear from you. So that's all folks really need to do is get in touch. Now, here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to hit on the current resources and opportunities, talk a bit about the SBA, and then sort of focus then in on what you do, and then talk about, well, the counseling that you give, right?
That's correct. All that is related to how they can stay current on what's going on.
All right, well, let's dive right in. No,
how about that?
With the water analogy, yeah. Okay.
Well, as you can see by this lovely picture up there, that we're trying to teach you how to fish. The old saying, it's not just to give you the information, it's to show you where you can go to get the information. So if you ever wonder about something, you'll know that you're at the right place, and then you can reach out accordingly. And another thing you need to know about staying current with COVID-19 issues that we learned from the spring of last year today, is it's a fluid situation. No pun intended with the water there on fluid situation, but what that means is what we say today may slightly change tomorrow. Even in the time we've put this PowerPoint together, some things changed. So again, it's all about knowing how to stay current.
Yeah, and that really is important because it really is a fluid situation right now. You've had a change in administration, just philosophically how we roll out, what we roll out, things like that. And you guys are going to have to respond to that, but you're a great resource for that. So let's give them some history on the SBA.
Okay. Once upon a time, in about 1953, the SBA was created, Small Business Administration. And I find this very interesting. The person that is in charge of the SBA is called the administrator. So it's a cabinet post with the president. So just like the Secretary of the Treasury or the Department of Defense or whatever, it's a position there. So it's the only nation's go-to resource as a voice for the small business owners. And most people think of the SBA as a place where they can get SBA loans and disaster response, which brings us to the COVID-19 programs that started in the spring of last year.
And obviously you have a website.
We do have the SBA website, and we thought we would kind of give you a look at what the homepage looked like in case you want to kind of have a mental picture of where you're going. It's easy to find at the www.sba.gov.
So do you find that folks who get in touch with you or use the website, that they find it rather user-friendly?
They do, and of course there's a lot of information, and the SBA, as I'll mention in a few slides, will funnel them to some of the more boots on the ground people. But it is easy to navigate. There's just tons of information. You can get lost in it, but it really will hit the point that you're searching for in some way. But this slide here, I put a yellow band at the top because in the previous slide, at the top of the homepage of the SBA is a gold band or yellow band at the top that lets you know right away. Click on this, it'll take you right to the COVID programs. So that's the first point I wanted to make.
do you find you're getting consistent questions, the same questions keep popping up all the time, or are you getting just a barrage of all kinds of questions about related to COVID?
Well, it's mostly fairly current from the programs. I guess where we are today, as we were last year when the program began, is that no one really had a clue last year what this was about. It may have been out there, but there was not a lot of explanation. It was sort of creating it on the fly, interpreting it on the fly. And while this is still a crisis, it's dissipated in some way that it's not quite the panic situation that it is today than it was then. So it's a little more settled in, but for the programs for the most part, it's the same lingo, same programs, but with a different twist to it.
All right, so I'm a small business owner. I have a bagel shop. I call you up and ask you about the Paycheck Protection Plan. And so is there a template or something that you use to sort of walk me through what I'd be eligible for, if I'd even be eligible? How painful is that process for the small business owner?
It's not very painful at all. It requires more than just a quick answer. You know, there's a lot of questions that need to be asked. As we talk about the counseling in our conversation, that's where the relationship really happens. If we drill down specifically to their issue, where they are, it may require that we get together by a Zoom meeting or whatever to go into that. But they've probably done something already at this point with the Paycheck Protection Plan, so they're probably already familiar with it. Perhaps the economic injury disaster loan, they did that last year as well. Mm-hmm. So they may can do those again, or just need to be clarifying. There may be some residual left over from last year that they need to know about.
Well, and I guess some folks are hesitant to get in touch with you because they're not sure what they need or what they're eligible for, and what they need to understand is you'll help them with that. You'll help figure out where they fit, right?
Right. You know, when you go to the doctor and you have a cold and you're coughing and you don't feel good, you don't feel bad about letting the doctor see you, right? So think of it as the same way. You're not going to tell us anything we haven't already heard before, probably. It might just be slightly different. So you should be comfortable coming to us. We have confidentiality relationships, so you can know that what you're talking about, it's going to be respected, and we're there to help you.
Well, and in your case, I'll give you a shameless plug. I mean, you're not just someone who understands the theories and practices of this. You, small business owner, I mean, you were in business, so you've made the paychecks. It's not just the theory of a paycheck. You've actually had to make payroll and cut the checks.
That's true. I did that for about 30 years and enjoyed that, you know, very much, with the ups and downs. That's just the wonderful part about being in business. And I try to always wear the shoes, again, of the person I'm talking to.
So outside of COVID, there are lots of other resources on the website. Could you run down some of those for us?
Yes, if you go to the SBA website, you know, that gold band I talked about at the top across. There are also some other things here: the business guide section, funding program section, federal contracting, and a learning center. So let me hit a couple of high points on that I think they might be interested in. The funding programs, you know, when I was in business, as you said, I was there a long time, but I'd never had any contact with the SBA. Frankly, I didn't know what the SBA was. I had my own banking and everything was fine. I had no contact with that. But as I became familiar with being a part of the College of Business here, my eyes were open to, wow, this SBA thing is a huge thing. I can't believe I didn't know that much about it. So people think of the SBA as a place where they can go get loans and for the disaster assistance. So let me kind of bring that up to date with you on that. You know, the website will explain the various loan programs that the SBA always has. Mm-hmm. You know, some of those are specifically for women or minorities or veteran programs, but they're always there. And there is no bank of the SBA, so you don't just drive up and say, I'm here. You know,
there's no drive-through.
That's the first thing, is there's no bank of the SBA. So your contact is through your local lender. Mm-hmm. And not all banks have an SBA relationship. So you have to kind of, if you're wanting that, make sure you're at the right place. So if you go see XYZ banker, they may say, hey, we can provide you a loan from the bank, or we can go through the SBA through that program. The disaster assistance part there that's kind of interesting is the fact that, let's say a tornado hit your community or your county, and there's a disaster, official disaster. The SBA is going to send a local representative for a period of weeks. That you would have a in-person appointment or so to contact about your specific disaster at your business. But the COVID was the entire country in a disaster. So you can't send everybody to everywhere because we're all there.
Right.
So that's why the SBA website is so important to understand, because that's your window into how do you get your disaster assistance. Some of that's going to be when we talk to you, or as you navigate yourself on the site, you'll see that some of that might be you contact your local lender for the help. Some of that you can actually go to the SBA website yourself and apply for that.
And also, federal contracting can be big business, but it can be daunting trying to get in the system.
That is true. There are various steps to go through. That's becoming more and more of a big thing. And as you probably saw in the initial slide, one of the new things we have here is about cybersecurity. And that is tying into that federal contract. And there are quite a number of things coming down the pike that your business has got to say that you've done to get that. That's sort of a topic for another day, but I wanted to kind of throw that out to you that is part of that.
Well, and also you've got some learning materials on the site, right?
Yes, it has a huge number of topics that you can go to wet your whistle, so to speak, that can help you. It could be COVID related, maybe or maybe not.
Also, I know we're going through just a laundry list of things that you can find on the website. There's some help for veterans, and it's a fairly robust program.
For the veterans, yes, the VBOC program here that we actually have at Mississippi State University with Mark Scott, and we have the Revenue Readiness program as well. I'll go ahead and mention that too, because they kind of go hand in hand that Debbie Scott here has. So the SBA website also has many other of the no-cost assistance programs that they want you to really be funneled to or reach out to them for more specific individual counseling. And that's where the SBDCs come in to play. Many of our clients that we get are coming from the SBA website there.
And when appropriate, you can help find a mentor as well.
That's true. There's a program called SCORE. Don't ask me what that stands for. I never can remember it. Basically, it's the local chapter where you can go and find a mentor. So it's so important sometimes to have somebody that's a mentor. You're not required to have it, but there are people out there that would love to be your mentor with whatever business type that you have out there.
So we've mentioned several times that you run the SBDC here, which is the Small Business Development Center. But I guess we shouldn't take for granted that everyone knows exactly what that is. So give us some background on the SBDC.
Certainly. In 1981, there was an invention, so to speak, of the Small Business Development Center. So there's an America's SBDC, and then each state has a representation of an SBDC. So ours is the Mississippi Small Business Development Center. And as in most states, there's the one Nebraska Small Business Development Center, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it says we have 62, and I know there are just 50 states, Jeffrey, so I know the math is off a little bit. But, Texas has more than one, California has more than one, and then we have these territories like, the Virgin Islands and so forth. So everybody has a representative of the SBDC world at your disposal at no cost if you want to reach out there, whatever state you're in. Obviously, we're here representing the Mississippi Small Business Development Center at the College of Business. Well,
and when you say it doesn't matter what state you're in, it also doesn't really matter what state your business is in. I don't mean Illinois, Iowa. I mean how far along that business is. Because I have sent you, excuse me, some businesses just getting cranked up, and they have found your help to be invaluable. So again, if you're thinking of starting a business, and you have any questions, help us out there. You don't have to be a martyr and try to do this all yourself.
That's true. The worst that could happen, you could call and say, I wish I hadn't have done that. So, but we have a huge percent of our people that are already in business. When I first started with this several years ago, probably 70% were in were beginning a business, and now it's kind of completely reversed. Probably about 30% of the people I help are trying to start a business, and the other 70% are already in business. And a lot of that's reverting because we're having long-term relationships, which really you build on, continuity with it.
So talk about some of the core services and then some of the specialty services you offer.
Business counseling, of course, is mainly what we do. That one-on-one relationship with the business owner, or if there's more than one business owner, you can come as a team. We help with business plans and projections. This is not a turnkey operation. You don't say, "Can you have my plan ready by Tuesday?" Again, we're teaching you how to fish. We're going to make sure you don't drown, but we want you to do the work, and we'll help you along the way to coach you, and then hope you could have a business plan and some projections for your loan package. Entrepreneurship is, of course, we talk a lot about, and the access to capital that might be out there, whether it be venture capital or various investors or loans that might be available.
And you talked about cybersecurity, and that's one of your specialty services, right?
Yes, we just started some specialty services in the Mississippi Small Business Development Center this year. And the MSU SBDC Cybersecurity is a new center within our center that we've started for our statewide program. We do have an international trade division. We had someone from Oklahoma move here as our international trade expert. They've had many, many years of that, and that is a huge plus for the business owners in Mississippi, for what that person can do to help them.
Well, and it's important that when we talk about all of these programs and conversations that you have with small business owners, that this is all confidential, right? And I think there's some hesitancy sometimes of, well, like you said, going to the doctor and sharing it, but there is that confidentiality that folks need to be reassured that it's just going to be a conversation with you.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. That is so important.
So I was looking at the map of how these SBDCs are divided up, and I couldn't tell if it was like a congressional map or if it was with the PDDs, the planning development districts. Who decides who's in what territory?
Okay, that's a good question. I have the answer for you on that. The University of Mississippi is the statewide location. So that would be in the blue at the top in the Oxford location. They also have an SBDC that represents that top portion in blue. And then you go all the way down to the coast. In green, they have a subsidiary of that on the coast through the university. These are all through universities, community colleges, and so forth.
Okay.
The USM, Southern Miss in Hattiesburg, is there in red near the bottom. So the headquarters, so to speak, is Hattiesburg. Now, that in the pink, which should be maroon, shouldn't it? Because Starkville is in the pink counties. We have 10 counties that we shepherd in this. That's in Starkville, which we have a subcenter and a counselor in Meridian. We have East Central Community College. We have Hinds County Community College. We have Jackson State University. We have the City of Jackson, which came on as a new place for us last year, a very unique place. We've just added Copiah Lincoln Community College, and MDA, Mississippi Development Authority, is now part of that. So it kind of came about through the various university community colleges, and now those other two that I just mentioned. So, and we have counselors scattered throughout the state, and of course we've gone totally Zoom or whatever, telephone, email. There are no in-person visits for right now, but it's getting a little ahead of this a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and say this. The great thing about entrepreneurship, being in business, we've all struggled in the last year or so with this, but we've also become better business owners, streamlined. You figure out how to make things better. And we've certainly done that in our organization because we've adapted to ways that can provide better services, quicker services, and so forth during the pandemic.
You also are tech savvy, so you have a pretty good social media footprint.
We do, and the main reason I brought that up there because we talked at the beginning of this about staying current. So one of the best ways that you can stay current is by following the Mississippi Small Business Development Center on one or all of these social media platforms, and when something new comes out, which may happen even while we're talking today. Something new may come out. We quickly post that in a way that the business owner will be alerted. If they need to respond to something to know more about it, then they can do so.
So with all those options, there's really no excuse for not staying in.
That's right. If you're not paying attention very well, if you kind of get in the circle.
So we talked about the SBA website. Let's talk a bit about the your website.
Okay. The Mississippi Small Business Development Center website is www.mssbdc.org, and I emphasize that because one of the most common mistakes, people put the MS and they get the Massachusetts Small Business Development Center, and we don't want them going all the way to Boston.
That's a long way to go.
We want them to call us here in Mississippi. So that's that. Some of the highlights of our website there on the home page is the event section. So for years we have done in-person workshops at each of the locations, and the go-to workshops have been starting a business first steps. It's a workshop about what are the things that I need to do before I go into business. The second one is how to write a business plan. The third one is sort of about cash flow projections. Since we're not doing in person anymore, we've transcended that to only online, which can be either on demand or as a live webinar. And due to COVID, and again, a way that we've expanded our services because of the crisis, if they go to this part of our website, they'll not only see those 3 basic programs, they may see dozens of other things that we've put together on a variety of topics, which eventually might even be this program.
All right. All right. Well, and here's if you have questions, you've got the questions on the website as well.
Right. Just straightforward FAQs and links there that might be helpful. Certainly reach out to us, but if you might can answer some of your own questions.
COVID, there it is. At first I thought we were growing oranges in Mississippi.
That's right. Well, the main purpose of this is to show you the crown jewel of what we do, where we can help you and stay current. In the upper right-hand corner there's this red rectangle that says request for counseling. Sometimes it will default and say request for disaster assistance. It's the same thing, but I pointed that out. So that's where you would go to register to have a counseling relationship. Again, I'm going to relate it to the doctor visit. It's a one-time, you come to the doctor, you don't just start talking about your whatever. You have to fill out something to get you in the system. So this is where you register to be a client, and you're forevermore a client.
And this is pretty much what you're doing here in COVID right now, right? And we talk, I like the word relationship, because I think that's
what
so
it's all
important,
about.
that it's not a one-time, we go to the doctor, but we keep going back to that doctor because there's some trust there and there's a relationship there, and I think that enhances the outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, you want your doctor to tell you the truth, but you also want them to tell you in such a way that you can relate to it and that you respect and understand it. And so we want you to be comfortable. We're not there to agree with you or disagree with you. We're not necessarily there to lead you in a particular direction. We're there to give you honest, best suggestions that we might have for you, so that you can make your own decision.
Well, and so you guys are staying on top of all the changes, which is and they're, like as you mentioned, as we speak. But you also talk about the business owner having a team. Tell me about the bail team.
Well, this is just a little thing that I like to say all the time. It keeps people grounded. Certainly they can come to us for answers and consultation, but this is sort of a nice disclaimer, I guess you would say. I don't claim to be your banker or your insurance agent, attorney, or a lawyer. But so the bail team is always great for a business owner to always have at their disposal a banker, an accountant, an insurance professional, a lawyer that they have a relationship with in such a way that in case they needed, they would know where to go.
All right, so if someone gets up with you for some counseling, walk us through that, what they'll need, what the expectation might be.
Okay. Again, a few slides back we show where to go to click on. So what happens is after you click on that, it's going to ask you for your basic information such as your email, contact information. It takes all of about 5 minutes or so to log in. It's going to ask you various, what location would you like to to have a counseling relationship with. Geographically, it may not matter that much, but in case you do have a particular one, that's what you would do. We want to know if you're in business or not. This doesn't mean you have to be in business. We just kind of want to know where you are with it. What topics would you like to discuss? So there'll be little things for you to click so that you'll have kind of an idea what you want to talk about. And you can expect that we will contact you promptly. If not within an hour or so, it might be a day or so sometimes, or the weekend or whatever, to get back with you. But we're very sensitive that you needed help or you wouldn't have reached out.
Well, and again, you've touched on some of these, but here are some common topics that come up. Pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, I could probably do 3 or 4 pages and still not be through with the common things that we might talk about. I'll point out a few things here. We have a lot of people that come for business expansion. How do they go about doing that? And how do they, the financing of that? Buying and selling a business. That's one of sort of the residual that's happened from the COVID. A lot of people are saying, maybe this is a good time for me to make an exit or an opportunity to buy. And that has become a great part of what we're doing now.
Well,
that next generation coming in or whatever, and franchising we're leading to a lot of franchises right now.
We have found with our startups that we're working with that having an exit strategy is almost critical these days, and folks don't think about that. So how do the transition out of a business, family business, handing that down? Well, you've got a lot of experience in family business.
Right, but every scenario has its own challenges and opportunities. The main thing is that hopefully it's a win-win situation for the person who's buying and selling. And I will point out the last one on that list was homework.
Yes, I did.
After we get through having your initial session, you might have some homework, which you don't have to do, but you ask for help, so we give you some things to ponder, to think about, to have done before we meet again. So the relationship continues with you for as long as you want it to be. We keep accurate records of what we talked about. So if I don't hear from you in 3 months or 6 months, when you call, I instantly will know exactly where we left off and continue it. We have long-term relationships, as I said, with most people. But if it's just a one and done, and that's what the help you needed, then that's perfectly fine.
You had mentioned some of your partners and thought we'd at least give them their props and put them up on the screen.
That's true.
You can see who all you're working with.
We're a great team. We work together very well. Let me make one other point right quick we did mention from one of the slides that can help you staying up to date. Our team at the Mississippi Small Business Development Center, we Zoom together generally 1 or 2 times a week because things change that often, just to make sure that we're really on cue. And so we get to know our other people in our organization really well. And a lot of them have expertises that I might not have, and vice versa, that we've always got someone else we can tag team together to help someone if they need it.
Well, I want to get your contact information back up on the screen as we wrap up here. And you and I have been working together for some time now, and I can attest to just how effective and efficient your office is. And I think it comes obviously by the structure of the Small Business Development Centers and the SBA, but in your case, it's also what you bring to the table as a caring, compassionate person with a lot of business experience. So I say that not to make your head swell, but I've seen it work, and I just want to encourage folks to reach out to your local business development center, contact SBA, because there are resources out there to help you in these very, very difficult times. And once we get through COVID, running a business is difficult. So knowing there are folks and experts out there who want to help is just good to have.
Well, I appreciate that. We appreciate what you do for us also at the College of Business and so forth. So we're a great team.
Well, thank you for being here, and we thank you for watching and hope you found this session helpful.